I sincerely hope that no one will leave here this evening without something new that they have wanted to learn or have never heard about to help your genealogy research. Before I begin, how many of y'all are just starting out in this research? Okay, everybody starts at the beginning. Genealogy is frustrating, rewarding, exhilarating, eye-scratching, head-turning. It's a potential magnificent obsession. I've been trying to do it for about 18 years off and on, and I've been able to trace both sides of my family back to 1600 England and it's either Scotland or Ireland. I still haven't quite figured that out yet, so I think there's a flight across the Atlantic Ocean in my future, not too far down the road. Excuse me, all right, come on now. Okay. As I say, I'm a history buff, and I found something I'd like to share with you. I thought it was rather humorous.
Can you bring your mic up a little bit?
How pleasant is?
That would be great, thanks.
Is it not loud enough or too loud?
That's better, thank you.
Okay. I always like to find the random humorous things that related to genealogy, and I think most, if not everybody here, knows who Albert Einstein is. And apologize for the poor quality, but I'll read you what he's thinking. So that would make my second cousin once removed, the great aunt of my first cousin twice removed. No, wait, that can't be right. And at the bottom, it says, by Einstein quickly moved on to general relativity. And that's not really too far from the truth, I don't think. I'm going to cover three things this evening, and again, I hope it's something that's informative and useful to you. I'm going to talk about starting your search. I'm going to talk about Ancestry and Heritage Quest and Fold 3. Those are commercial subscription databases. And I'm also going to talk about a few free use, no fee genealogy websites that hopefully not many of you have heard of and might be able to fill in the gaps that you struggle through to find. When you start out, I'll give you a couple of bits of advice I've encountered over the years. Figure out some way, whichever way works for you, to organize everything you find. I have seen time and again over the years, people come in with a big folder, it's disorganized, and it's not a judgment, it's not a criticism, but they're not quite sure why they came to the library. They're not quite sure what they're going to do there and who they're looking for. Keep your records organized in any way you can. Believe me, I speak from personal experience. It's a lot easier to figure out. There's no correct way. The way technology is today, I cannot urge and emphasize enough. Make a backup copy of everything you find. Scan it. Now, I know that's a pain in the neck. Scan it. Make copies. Use a flash drive. Now, when I worked at the Daughters of the American Revolution, I'm going to talk about them just a little bit later on, but give you an example of how important it is to back up your information. To become a member of the DAR, the applicant has to prove her lineage, generation by generation, back to a Revolutionary War patriot or soldier. An application form they have to fill out, they have to send in what's called proofs, documents, marriage records, death records, something that can be verified to prove each generation in the applicant's mind. Those documents are kept at the DAR and they're scanned into a database that you can use if you go there. Unfortunately, I think most everybody here has heard of Hurricane Katrina. Shortly thereafter, weeks and months on end, a lot of members who have lived there have lost everything. And they called our library and asked, is there any way we might still have a copy of the documents they submitted for membership? Fortunately, we did. 10 pages, 20 pages, 50 pages. So all the time, effort, and energy and money you're going to spend doing this research, back it up somehow, because I would hate to see anybody lose all that hard work thing I like to tell my customers and fellow researchers is you're going to run into a brick wall, a dead end. It happens. Try to recognize it, push yourself back. You can get really involved, you can get luck, find relatives you hadn't thought you would find, you may be fairly quick and easy to find them, but at a certain point, when you spin your wheels and not go anywhere, take a mental health day, take a break. Come back, there might be new information that's available, you might have a different perspective on what you were doing, and just recognize that. Also recognize the possibility you may never complete your research on a particular family line. It's hard to say, I think I've got as far as I can. Believe me, I've said that a few times reluctantly. But just also understand that you just may get only back so far, not as far back as you wanted to. There are a lot of, I would strongly recommend you do this. There's a lot of forms, pedigree charts that are online, free. Use that as a guide, take a visual representation of what you found and what you're missing can be very helpful a lot. I would stay initially focused on one family surname, and it's hard not to drift off when you find something unexpected and you wonder where it's going to take you. Try and focus again, this is just me. And this may sound strange to some people, but it's okay to use Google when you're searching. A lot of family associations have their own websites. It's amazing what you potentially may find that someone else has found. It fits right into your lineage. Bible records, cited sources, and there are even some websites that have DNA websites or family-related results. I found one for my last name, Davidson, and it confirmed a lot of what I found. So don't laugh when somebody says, Google, it's another resource. It's another resource. And as weird as it might be to say, everything is not on the internet. The technology has made unbelievable strides the past 10, 15, 20 years. But you may try to find something, you cannot find it online. At some point, you're going to have to figure out where to find it at the local level. We'll talk about that in just a moment, too. When you start, you would surprise yourself when you sit down and think about it, how much you already know about your family. Gather what you can, family Bibles, talk to relatives, especially older relatives. They may have memories that you never knew they had until you actually sit down and talk to them. There are a lot of different documents that may be within different parts of your family, letters, heirlooms, photographs, Bibles, military records, obituaries, wills, birth, death, and marriage certificates. There's a wealth of information potentially at your fingertips. Several years ago when I worked in PG County, a young lady, early 20s, came in, and somehow the conversation drifted into the fact that she had a 106-year-old great-grandmother. And she loved talking to her and listening to her memories. So many years ago, she said, I wonder how I can capture that. Get a cassette recorder or a tape recorder. If you have a cell phone, it might have a built-in recorder. You can take an audio recording, a video recording. It's like the old-fashioned oral history. Put it on and let them talk. It's stunning what you may hear. And you may hear a lot of things that you may not find on a Bible record, but it's those personal recollections that are just worth their weight in gold. When you go to the library, I would suggest you do a couple of things. Bring a digital camera and bring a flash drive. In my department, I allow customers to take pictures of the books or the resources we have. They have the option of making photocopies, but if you've got a camera, bring it. Some institutions will allow you to do that, some will not, so it's always better to ask, but bring it just in case.
Is that available here?
Pardon?
Is that available here?
Get ready to get to that, yeah. Another thing I would suggest you bring with you is a little flash drive. A lot of libraries have copiers that allow you to scan images onto a storage device, so you don't have 78 pages of printouts. But again, that's your preference. But the way the technology can make things easy, keep that in the back of your mind and try and bring those two devices with you. Ancestry. Ancestry.com, I've only dealt with the institutional subscription since I've worked in the libraries. It is not remote accessible. You have to come to the branch to use it if they have a subscription. Okay. Does anybody here use Ancestry? A little frustrating, isn't it? I think it's probably the granddaddy of all the databases. It's got a ton of information. It's just when you get hundreds of thousands of results or even millions of results, you're like, what am I going to do? It's just overwhelming. I hope what I'm going to show and tell you might make it a little bit easier and maybe a little less frustrating. Ancestry has 12 separate categories of documents and records. They've got over 10,000 record collections within those 12 categories. And what I've listed here, the number in the parentheses, is how many census and voter lists there are in the Ancestry database. And it's not limited to just the United States Census. There are international censuses as well. So there's just a huge, overwhelming number. Pictures, wills, probates, and at the very bottom, family trees. I put be careful for a reason. Time and time again, I've had customers come in and say they found this bit of information from somebody's family tree that's on Ancestry. Those are individually posted. They are not monitored, nor are they regulated by Ancestry. If you find something, you can post it. The potential downside to that is more often than not, those individual family tree entries do not cite the source of the information that they're posting. So-and-so married so-and-so 1788. Okay, great. Where? What's your source? There's no truth without proof. I'm not going to say that family trees are totally useless, but be very, very objectively skeptical when you analyze someone's family tree. It might give you a little smidget of a hint, of a guide, maybe a direction you hadn't considered. And some are very meticulously documented as far as the sources. And there may be digitized images of those sources. I found about 3 weeks ago, I found this bumbling around through Ancestry looking for some of my father's people. And I found a picture of my great-grandfather in the early 1900s. And I'd never heard of or seen that before, and I just fell out of my chair, like a eureka moment. But again, be very skeptical and judicious when you evaluate family trees. I'm sorry. I'm going to see if I can do this. I want to try and pull up the library's Ancestry subscription, because I think where a lot of frustration comes in through is how to analyze the results, and I think there's some tips that might make it a little bit easier. Okay.
And on the left, the database is
Okay, I take it for a bit. Yes, ma'am.
If you have created your own personal account, your own personal family tree, if you come here to the library and use the library resource, can you still access and edit that if you would like cancel your personal subscription?
That's a very good question. The question was, if you create a tree and edit it with a personal subscription, and then you drop your personal subscription, and you come to the library and still access it.
You can, but you can't see the notes that are attached to it.
Everybody hear that? You can, but you cannot see the notes that are attached to it.
Can you edit it further?
You can edit it and add further, but you're limited. You're not going to have the same. When you log on here, if you're just using it here, and you don't have a subscription, that you're gonna be really limited on what you can see, and you won't be able to pull stuff like you do when you have a subscription.
Thank you.
Okay. Homepage. A couple of things to point out. At the very top, there's a link that says new collections. If you click that, you'll get a list of all the new databases and records collection that Ancestry has. I think they add something just about every day. It's 5, 10, 15, 20. And it's very helpful if you've used Ancestry before and you didn't find a particular record set. Doesn't mean they won't eventually get it, but check the click the new collections link, and you'll get a list of what they have recently added. Sometimes they'll go in spurts for different records from a particular geographic location. It might be specific types of records, maybe birth records from 8, 10, 15, 20 different states. But that's always helpful. You just wonder, okay, I've never seen this before, maybe they've added it now. Tricky part when you're doing the search, this is the bare bones basic. You pull in the basics and you get hundreds of thousands, if not several millions of hits. Okay, that's the basic search. I strongly suggest you click the link that says more options to do a more detailed and advanced search. In name, place where they live, birth year, and when you, this is where I think you're going to have some potentially great success, is the birth, marriage, and death records, because you can be very, very specific. Now you see when I started typing in the first name, this little link down here says exact. Click that, and you will have a chance to do a sound X or similar or sounds like. You're going to run into that a lot the further back you go into the early 19, 18, 1700s. There's more than one way to spell the same name. And if you focus on a specific spelling of a name, it's going to limit your possibilities. Immigration, especially census records, it's amazing how many different spellings you can find over a span of 3 or 4 or 5 different federal census records. So try the sounds like, similar, and initials for the first name. You may get a lot of hits, but again, it might be quality instead of quantity. Same for the last name. Sounds like, similar, sound X. Improve your odds for a successful search. Birth. There's some other things that are built in that can help you. When I type in the name of the year of the birth, again, exact shows up. And if you're not sure what year your relative was born, you can give the program a range, maybe within 1 year of what you type in, maybe 2 years, maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years. Because it's not consistent, especially with the 18, early 1900s. This is my great-grandfather. This is a picture I found online a while back. He was born in 1840. But the first time I found him in a census, he was listed as being a particular age. And I backtracked to what I thought his year of birth was. It was 1844. And then I found 1842, 1841. So there's a lot of options to control how well your results are going to be. You can do the same thing for other events, marriage, death, live-in. You will still get those options. See, when you start typing in the box, it's going to give you that little drop-down menu where you plug in your variables. Okay? Now, here's the payoff. When you do search, Okay, smaller number than I expected, but 653 total records based on my search term. And when you get up to 10, 20, 30, 50, 100, 100,000, so it's an overwhelming amount. Over to the right, you see where it says census record and voter lists. And there's a number of 98 that tells you there's 98 results based on that 650. Every single category that has a bit based on our results is going to break it down. It's like an outline. That 653 total is broken down here on the left. And if you want to know what the census and voter results are, you simply click on the link. It's like peeling back the layer of an onion. And you can choose which one that you want to look at. You can scroll down and pick a particular census year. You can do that for all the results you get. So there's 12 different categories. That's the best way I have found to try and sort through a massive amount of results. I hope none of you have played around with this. If you do, and you'll get some degree of success. Again, it's very frustrating. And Ancestry, I've been arguing with them for about 15 years to try and stop changing the main page and the search page. And just by the time everybody figures out how to use it, they do a completely different facelift on it. Like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So be aware they like to change the rules of the game sometimes. Again, I'm just on the handout trying to give the examples of the different variables that you can use to plug in. Again, left side of the screen shows the categories and the number of results. Heritage Quest Online. Has anybody here ever heard of that? Okay. It is, if your library has a subscription to Heritage Quest, it is remote accessible in just about every library I've ever come across. You can access it through the library's homepage. Your library card will be your password. It has nowhere near the amount of records that Ancestry does, but the one thing that I like that it has, and you can do this from home. I do that at 2 o'clock in the morning with a cup of coffee if I can't sleep. You can access all the census records free. You don't have to come to the library, although I'm sure the library would love everybody to come in and visit them. But it's an option if you're not able to. Yes, ma'am. Yes, they did. They did. I'm going to quickly go over what Heritage has and then go through that real quick. They've got all the U.S. Census records, full text, 28,000 books, full text genealogy family publications. That's a gold mine. Someone may have written a book 20, 30, 50, 80 years ago, and it's just sitting there waiting for you to find it. It doesn't cost you a thing but a little time to search. There's something called PERSI, which is a periodical source index. If you're trying to find a particular article, or if you want to search for an article, you can use this database at Heritage Quest. It's maintained by the Library of Fort Wayne, Indiana. And they've got over 6,600 periodicals and over 2 million citations available. You can order a copy online. That was recently taken over a few years ago by a company called Find My Past. But again, if you're looking for a particular magazine, journal article, historical society publication, that's a good place to consider starting. It does have the Revolutionary War pension and family land warrants. I don't know that Ancestry has all of those, but those are the pension files from Revolutionary War patriots that are housed at the National Archive down in D.C. And that's how I found a connection to one of my patriots on my father's side back in the Revolution. I knew who his son was, but I couldn't prove it. It drove me nuts. And I happened to look at his pension and found out he died in 1822. His wife survived him by 36 years. As a widow, she was able to apply for the widow's pension. And lo and behold, one of the affidavits listed all of their children by name and by age. And I found the name I had been looking for so many years and the age almost seems to be matched up to what I've researched so far. The pension records are great to get a kind of a personal narrative of what the patriot did. It may not have much genealogical value, but again, it's just something that's a heritage quest. Freedmen bank accounts, those are bank accounts set up for African Americans after the Civil War. They're a great source of research for African American research. It's not limited to just the account name and the number. It may have several members of the family listed on the account as part of the family, possibly as being authorized to take something from the account. And the U.S. serial set is a great source of information after the country finished the Revolutionary War. When Congress was established, a lot of congressmen would get petitioned by their constituents to file some type of affidavit on their behalf. A pension, 1812, War of 1812 pension application, some type of benefit for someone who helped this country be created. So it's might be a little less accessible, but again, it's another potential resource as you get further back in the 1800s. Yeah. Okay, this is the home page for Heritage Quest. Very simple to do the ancestry. It's like comparing a pencil to a Lamborghini, I guess. The links will take you directly to the different sources of the database. Again, the thing I want to stress, you don't have to come here to use it. And it's great, especially with the census records. Great source. Has anybody here ever heard of a database called Fold3? They were originally called Footnote. They became public about 7 or 8 years ago. They have a ton of military records, primarily military records, federal, state level. And what I've listed here are the different wars or conflicts during the history of America. And the number is how many different types of record categories they have for each individual conflict. They do have some non-military records. To me, the big thing they have that I've been successful with are naturalization and immigration records, citizenship applications. Again, primarily military, but it's not limited to that. Yes, ma'am. Pardon?
I'm interested in World War II records.
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of records would it be? I'm looking for my father's records, who was repatriated. He was put into a forced entry in Germany, repatriated back to the US. Is that site the best site to go to?
It would be one I would consider.
How about Ancestry?
I would use Ancestry and Fold3 if you're looking more or less for World War II records. Now, you may or may not find what you're looking for, but those would be one of the two areas I would consider. The other thing I would consider is contacting the military records office in St. Louis. I just had a thought about that. They're affiliated with the National Archives. They have, you can send in a request for someone's military record. I did that for my father. And
My father was not in the military.
okay,
He was free, forced labor.
okay, I'm sorry.
What about repatriation or immigration? Really, there's an immigration.
Well, did he come to the United States?
He was born in the United States, but he was living in Poland when he was Catholic.
Okay.
And
They do have some buried World War II records. Some are documents from the Germans. The concentration camps. Some people have been able to trace their relatives who they knew or suspected were held in German camps.
This is what's there. What's the name of the concentration?
Well, there again, there's such a wide variety. They've got American military records. They have trial records after the war. They've got concentration camp records. It would be something to consider going to visit. It does not cost anything to use. Yes. The entire website. It's called Old 3. Yeah, yeah. And you can, about a third to a half of the records are free use. You don't have to register, you don't have to log in, you don't have to give an email or anything else. It's a great way to preview what they've got. And you can do a 7-day sign up free. And I know a lot of databases that have subscription. It's like an act of Congress to get them to stop charging your credit card when you tell them you don't want it anymore. I worked with Old 3 when they were getting started, and the best insurance I could give you is I did it myself. I did a free trial, stopped it in 4 days, and they stopped it. They're very responsive. They're very customer friendly. That's not a plug, even if it might sound like it, but it's another option. I think the annual fee is maybe $80 a year. It just depends if the content is worth your investment and your time, but it's definitely worthwhile to look at it if you've never done so or have never heard of it before. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, I don't want to run out of time, but if you want, when we're finished, we got a few minutes, maybe I give you some suggestions specifically for some of the difficulties you're running into. There's some free websites that I've come across and I think are very worthwhile to consider. Has anybody ever heard of or used Cindy's List? Am I going to deal for you? Free website. Genealogy website. Nothing else. They have at last count over 330,000 individual websites, all related to genealogical research. That's a huge number. And it's done by one person named Cindy Howell. She created it back in 1996. She was in a society in Washington State and put together a list of about 500,000 websites to help the society talk and learn about the different resources just when the internet was coming online. Phenomenal site. I stopped drinking tequila about 23 years ago, and the first time I tried to use Cindy's List, I was reaching for the bottom. It's great, but there is a way to kind of get it to work for you, and you don't feel like you're working for it. This is the home page, and click on category. And as I scroll down, you will see categories all in alphabetical order. The number to the right in parentheses is the number of sites for that specific category. Blogs for genealogy, there's 245 websites. The Philippines, I was in service station there for 4 years, loved it. There's 77 websites for genealogy for the Philippines. Great, great, great. Now, how do you get this to work for you? And I'm going to show you real quick how to navigate. In the United States, there are over 164,000 websites just for genealogical research. You see below that, all the states are listed in alphabetical order. And since we are here in the great state of Maryland, you want to know what is available website-wise for Maryland. Click on the state link. Upper right-hand corner, 1,946 websites for genealogical research in the state of Maryland. Category index, these are just general topics of interest. Suppose you want to know what resources might be in a particular county. Click the county. And all of the counties in Maryland will show up in alphabetical order by county name. Say I live in Howard County, so I want to know what's in Howard County. Again, it's like an outline, it's like peeling back the layers of an onion. Upper right-hand corner, there are 47 websites for genealogy research in Howard County, Maryland. I said earlier, a lot of everything's not online, and you're going to have to try and figure out where you might find those documents. You may have to take a few field trips to go to local historical or genealogical societies in the area where your relatives live. This is one of the best starting places I can think of that can help you find if any exist. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
Will that show you an image of the birth, marriage, or death certificate if they have it?
If it's been scanned on their website, yes. Some of it is information, some of them have been transcriptions, some might be digitization. So, societies and groups. There is the Howard County Historical Society. Takes you to their homepage. And you can peruse the site, see if they have anything worthwhile. Every now and then, if you do use Cindy for any depth of degree, you might find a broken link. It happens. A lot of the sites run by volunteer societies. If they're volunteer, they're not open full time, a couple of days a week, maybe 2 or 3 hours a day. Doesn't mean that you can't find a website page some other way. They could do a Google search. But don't be surprised if you get page can't be found. You didn't do anything wrong. Trust me, I've done that before. But that's Cindy's list. It's a great source. It's a little bit overwhelming when you think about 330,000 plus websites for genealogy research. But you just may find a wealth of information there that you may not find on Ancestry. You may not find at Heritage. Again, it's just phenomenal. That makes sense to you? Okay.
But does that site have a family tree run through? Does that mean you can create a family tree?
No, the Cindy's list is strictly a listing of all the websites Ms. Howell has been able to find and continues to find. It's like a directory of genealogy websites. Now, the sites might allow you to do things, but Cindy's list is just a portal, just a guide to those different websites all around the country and all around the world. Okay. Has anybody ever heard of the US Gen Web Project? It's a bit similar to Cindy's. It's a free website for genealogy use. It's done entirely by volunteers, and the volunteers find and create links for resources at the state and county level. So there's some redundancy between this and Cindy's list, and there may be some things you find here that you may not find in Cindy's list.
That's strictly US.
Yes, strictly US. Click the link for Maryland. Okay, so what have you got in page before you go? Well, since consider Texas my adopted home state, whether it wants me or not, just click the link, it takes you to the home page, it'll break it down by categories, topics, different, and every page is going to be different because you have volunteers doing work within that specific state. So the cover of the book's different, but the content's going to be a lot of similarities. And again, they may transcribe, they may digitize, they may have links to other resources. It's an alternative or a supplement to Cindy's list. But again, the thing to stress here, it's free. It will cost you a little bit of thing, but time, a little effort, and keep your fingers crossed, maybe a pinch of luck that you may find something. Has anyone ever heard of the Church of Latter-day Saints Family Search? They are, to me, by far the largest genealogical resource collection in the entire universe. And it's all free. They have, for the past several years, undertaken a massive indexing project where they're matching the names to the names on the documents that they have, and they're trying to digitize. And I think it speaks for itself. Over 1,200,000,000 records done. And they've been able to do that because as a member of the church, that is part of their, I hope I don't offend anybody because I don't know the right word, maybe their commitment to this project. 7,000 to 8,000 volunteers all across the world. They have created a monster database. Phenomenal. Yes. To me, after a while, in any database you go to, or free site, they're all going to start to blur and look a lot alike, and it's all going to have a basis, a name, a year, a location, and an event. I would encourage you, if you have not thought of or done so already, to find your local family search center. They've got a lot of great people who are very well versed in genealogy. They may even have computers set up there to help you use family search. They do give workshops. I went to one last year at Essex all day, and it was just phenomenal. But family search, they're a great resource. And this is their homepage, and again, it's a bare bones basic, but you just simply fill in the blanks. Events. A lot of what they have now is currently not digitized, but that doesn't mean it's not going to eventually be digitized just because of the sheer volume of what they have. Digitization is extremely labor intensive and expensive. That's why you may not find a lot of resources online. Okay, so for searching for my great-grandfather, over 5,200 results, you simply click on the link. Over to the right, it has details, and if it's been scanned, there's a camera icon. It means you can click it and look at the image. Very similar, basically, to Ancestry, except this one's free. Great way to find things you may not find at any other place. Yes, ma'am.
So if you're building a family tree on Ancestry, could you click on that image, then can you drag it, or do you have to save it on your document and then load it up to Ancestry?
Like, say that again. I think you lost me on this.
How would you get the image to support your family tree on Ancestry? How would you transfer it?
It's a good question. I've never been asked that before, and I've never run into that.
So save to a thumb drive?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. I'm sorry. I copied my word. Yes, that's why I'm saying bring a thumb drive, bring a flash drive with you, and because you can download anything from Ancestry, Heritage Quest, Fold 3 if you get a subscription, Family Search. Yes, save it and then upload it when you have a chance to get into your whatever account. And you can do the same thing with Family Tree for the Family Search. It's almost like twins between Ancestry and Family Search. It's the very same basic principle. But yes, good question. Bring a flash drive and you can save it.
Can you create a family tree on here when you can on Ancestry?
Yes, the question is, can you create a family tree here if you can on Ancestry? The answer is yes. And I believe you can create, or allow links from other people doing the same research for your family to all interlink with your permission. So if somebody finds a tree you posted or created and posted, and they're searching, you've got common ancestors, common denominator ancestor, reach out to you. I like what you did, can I have something?
Do any of these sites, like Ancestry, has the ability where it shows you hints? It sees you going in a certain direction, and then it gives you hints to follow the trail?
Yes, with Ancestry, and I'm sorry I didn't point that out. The question was, will Ancestry and any other databases give you hints, kind of leads or whatever? When you do a search for Ancestry, say you do someone with 1900 census, you find the relative, and you've got the specific information transcribed from that census record. Over to the right, you may get hints. You could be the same person that appeared in the 1910 census. You may find a listing for that person in a directory, a city directory. That person may have some type of military record. So yes,
Do these other sites do that as well?
yes. And before we run out of time, I did want to talk about the Daughters of the American Revolution, not because I worked there, but because I did work there, but it's a world-class library. And it's got one of the best genealogy libraries in this area. Over 250,000 books, and I left there about 2 years ago. There probably 250,000 books, and it's all genealogy, all family history research. The real potential payoff is, I said earlier, to become a member of the DAR, prove your lineage. They have, I think, up now to over 950,000 members since the society was created back in 1891. They have all been digitized. If you have time to go to the library, they have a computer room. At last count, they had 24 computers that allows you access, free access, to the database that has all of their applications digitized, as well as probably now over 13 or 14 million documents that were submitted with the application to prove the applicant's lineage. It's all been scanned, all digitized. So if you know someone in your family who was a member of the DAR, or if you find you have a relative who was involved in the Revolutionary War, that's someplace I would consider. Because someone might possibly have done all of your lineage research. Exactly, piggyback. The applications will have citations of the information. They may have the copies of their vital records. So you can piggyback on what somebody else has done. You can go to the website, go to the library, and just play around, poke around with it. But again, because it's so close to this area, if you had heard of it but didn't know what benefit there might be, it's something to consider.
Is that online as well, or you have to go there?
To look at anything that's been digitized, you have to go there. They will not, the members would not allow the database to be available free for the public. But if you go there, it doesn't cost you anything to use, but you do have to pay for your printouts if you find anything.
Do you have to be a member as well?
No, you do not have to be a member. You walk in and ask for directions to either the library or the computer room. It's in two different separate locations. They have a reference desk in each location, so that can staff there to help you get going.
Does this
Yes, ma'am.
database help you find if you have an ancestor that's within the American?
Yes, with a caveat. The only patriots you will find in the DAR database are ones that have been verified by the DAR genealogists who reviews and approves the application. So if you put in a man or a woman's name, and there were women patriots too, if you put in the name in their database and you don't get any results, doesn't mean they weren't a patriot. It means nobody has joined the DAR. But if you do put the name in, and it is your relative, there could be 5, 10, 15, 30 members who are all direct descendants of that one patriot. And someone may have done the line that you're a descendant from them to the applicant. Now, goes without saying, at a certain point, the lines are going to branch. But it's amazing what people have, like you said, perfect description, piggyback on what somebody else has done.
No, like, is Dolly Madison part of that?
No. And contrary to popular belief, and I didn't know this until I've been here for a while, no one can become a member of the DAR through George Washington's lineage because he had no kids. The woman he married, she had children from her first marriage, but George Washington did not have any children. Now, you did the opposite. There are dozens, hundreds of pages of supporting documents available for a particular page. It depends on how many members have joined. The largest collection of documents I found for a page was for Daniel Boone. I found almost 900 pages of supporting documents submitted by, it must have been almost 100 members when they applied for membership. Now, a lot of that's duplicates. People submit stuff independently, but you just may find something that there you may not find any other place. Or it could be you walk out empty-handed, but again, just make you aware of the potential and the option there. Again, you don't have to be a member, there's no fee to use a library, you just pay for whatever you print out if you find anything. Another free resource, kind of in our own backyards, are state archives. And I'm sure most everybody here has probably heard of Maryland State Archives. They've got indexes, they're digitizing all different kinds of records, newspapers, Bible records, but every state in the country, and even some U.S. territories, have their own specific website for that particular state archives. And it could be a potential wealth of information. If you have people who were established or settled in Maryland to begin with, and if they've gone west or moved to other states, there's a possibility you might find records at the archive that may not be found in any other place. Again, a lot of it's been digitized, some of it hasn't. There may be indexes. But
District of Columbia?
yes. Should. The link that I put on the handout is an active link. You just type that exact link in and it'll give you an alphabetical listing of all the state archives and a link directly to their homepage. It's free, doesn't cost a thing to use. Yes, ma'am.
Will this have as much information as actually going to the state archives building?
The question was, would it have as much information as actually going to the state archives? It might save you a trip if you can find what you're looking for at the website. Or it may not have any index, it may not have anything that's been digitized, but it may simply say, we've got marriage records for Henry County, Virginia from 1888 to 1912 on microfilm. That's the lead. Is it worthwhile to go to the state archives in Virginia and Richmond? It's hit or miss. Yes, ma'am.
If you wanted to, say your family came from Europe over into Canada, what sites would you recommend? Would it be Cindy's List to search there, or would you have any other recommendations?
Cindy's List would be a good starting point for that because there are several hundreds of websites for Canadian research. If you happen to know what province,
Ontario, Toronto.
okay. I did a little bit of limited research for someone years ago, and I know that the provinces do have their own archival offices. Maybe Cindy's List might actually have a link for it. But I found a lot. I stumbled across this. One of the provinces actually had digitized journal entries from the British general during the Revolutionary War, where they had lists of prisoners and transfer orders, and somebody actually found a relative who was a prisoner of war within the British Army in Canada. So, again, I think every province should have some type of archival department and website. Yes, ma'am. South America. Question was, is Cindy's list good to trace relatives to South America? It's a good starting point, because there is a link for every country on this planet. There may be 10, there may be 20, there may be 50. And as you click on the link to South America, just like I did for Maryland, let me tell you how many websites, and break it down to the categories. Just about every country or state link will have a listing for professional genealogists who could do research. That's kind of like drinking coffee with a fork to know how reliable and qualified they are. But it's an option if you're not able to go there. Most often there is not a fee for the sites to find Cindy's list. Every now and then it may give you a link that does charge a fee, like Ancestry, and it'll be a little $ logo at the end of the description. But you will never be charged a fee using Cindy's list. It may direct you to a fee that does require a fee. Good question, and brings up another thought in conjunction with that is a lot of the different countries will have just tons and tons of websites. Some of the sites may be in the native language, which for me, big challenge. I modeled through Spanish in high school more years than I care to admit. So, and they are not translated into English. Some of them might be. Yes. Yeah, let me get her first, please.
Is there any records for indentured servants? I have a relative grandfather for that. They found his name, and I found it in, different probate. There's no land. It says he had land. The witness that matter is a witness somewhere back in the 1750s down in Benedict Hundreds. And I just can't find any connection. I have a 50-year gap between him and the next people that I found. I just can't find anything about him because he had no land. His name was in these law books.
That's probably where, if you find anything, it's probably going to be in some type of legal document that would legal status situation for that person. Unless, and this is a big long shot, some cities or counties might have had their own individual census taken before the first federal census in 1790. I know Virginia has a lot of individual censuses going back, depending on the location.
But there was nothing really down when they came along the ship.
Possibly, and you never know what you're going to. Usually, the older censuses are going to be bare bones basic information. Maybe they had a household, and maybe if you're lucky, how many males and how many females are living there. But it doesn't hurt to at least consider trying, because maybe there might be some notation, indentured servant, slave, whatever the designation was at that time. So I think if you find anything, it would probably be to do any type of legal document. Yeah, exactly. Yes?
You suggest going back to the direct descendants, like mother, father, grandparents, keep going back there? Because my tree's getting humongous with all these people in it. I'm half German, so I can follow my great grandparents in Germany, although I'm getting conflicting information. At one point, he renounced his Russian citizenship, but on the census it says his birth was German, and we were always grown up listening to German. So and somebody told me that when Catherine the Great called people back to the homeland, so he may have renounced his German citizenship, but I got like a dead end at that point.
There's a possibility that might be a true immovable dead end.
Yeah.
What time frame are you talking about? What years?
Late
Just
1800s.
1800s? There's a possibility that his place of origin, place of birth might be more than one listed country.
Yeah, again, it's really cool. I didn't find it.
Hang on just a second. To kind of maybe give an example of what I'm saying, I did some research on a very close friend of mine. I found her grandmother. Spit an image of my friend. I just couldn't believe it. But they had listed on the application all the specific birth information. They were born in Poland. Now, they came to the United States in 1904, 1910 census, they said they were born in Russia. 1920 census, it says they were born in Prussia. So you have to think in the context of what was going on in the world at that time, politically and geographically. You may have to cast a net approach and go to every single country that is listed in whatever documents. And it's like, how am I going to do that? You really no other choice. You have to go with the leads, the little tidbits of information, never quite knowing if it's going to pan out accurately and historically correct. In that context, that's what you might
I
be
get
facing.
it, so it's kind of weird that everything that I knew, finding out that like, might not be.
That's a possibility. You may find them in the most unexpected place. You may have gone as far as you can. That's why I say take a step back from this sometimes, regroup. And maybe some of the sites I've shown might give you new leads, new possibilities, especially with German genealogy. They've got some meticulous records. Some of the documents that still exist centuries ago. Luck of the draw sometimes.
On the other side is West Virginia, and there's like 10 brothers and sisters on each side, and I'm like, oh my God, should I just kind of stop and not do so much of that and go, I'm trying to find out that. My big name is Payne, and her maiden name is Payne.
Tricky part you have with West Virginia is, was it before it became West Virginia, or was it when it was still part of Virginia?
Buchanan County, McDowell County, right to the border of Virginia, West Virginia. And I've been there many times. I talked about the and I did interview all the relatives. But I'm actually finding Civil War records now. It was truly remote against early there. So it's pretty fascinating.
Before I lose this thought, what you were saying triggered the thought. Has anybody ever here heard of the Red Book? It's a book, genealogy related. It's got every state in the country that it has the formation of each individual county. When it was created, if it was created from another existing county, and it'll give you a list of what type of records can be found in a particular time frame and where you can find them. Say, my hometown is in Marshall, Virginia, it's Henry County. Henry County was created from another existing county. Just think of Virginia as a state, as one big pie. And they decide, okay, we're going to create 2 counties. Cut the pie in half. 3 or 4 generations later, we want another county. So they cut one half of that in half, so you've got 3 counties instead of 2. And the Red Book will help you figure out when the county was created and the year was created. May give you a clue on whether something may be there, or when the county was created in 1810, maybe another county was created from that existing county in 1850. And especially with West Virginia, that's just like trying to untie a Gordian knot, not use a sword.
One good thing is that the city is Paynesville, which is named after my great grandfather, Dan Payne. So I knew all this from knowing my old relative. So all the birth and death records saying Paynesville, they're all Payne. So there's like Paynes everywhere. And I'm trying to think, and I do know from the second generation back which ones are ours, but they're just kind of like.
If they were a fairly prominent name in the development of the town or the geographic location, there might be a historical, genealogical society in the county or the region. They might have a lot of history.
That's right around where Dolly Madison is from, so I've already been told that, so I want to go back and actually find out if that, because my son is really into this right now.
Yeah.
I said,
Yeah.
The red book that you were just mentioning, Pratt, is that in print? Is Pratt over it?
Yes, we do.
And so if Pratt owns something, then you can contact Calvert Library, or you can contact Pratt directly and ask for something to be looked up in the print resource.
And that was another thing,
What was the comment? I didn't hear you.
whether, okay, I mean, kind of, last thing I'm gonna say, talk about the Maryland department. She asked about, whether or not my department at the Pratt Library has the red book. We do, we got tons of them. The Maryland department, just a little plug for us, we have resources for Maryland history research and Maryland genealogy research. That's all we have. Most of the resources we have are devoted mainly to Maryland history. But a large majority of the customers who come in to visit my department are interested in genealogy, so I'm trying to beef up the collection to balance out what we have versus what people are looking for. But the original question is, do we have the red book? Yes, we do. And it's, like I said, it's a great resource. When you go back that far, especially with West Virginia, or you're going back in the early 1700s when counties were being initially created, you can track the development, the year, the history, and the location of where you might be able to find certain records at a certain particular point in time. It helps really kind of put some of these crazy jigsaw puzzle pieces together to make some kind of picture that makes sense. It's like, I know it's out there, where can I find it? It's a great one to use for a resource going that far back. Yes, ma'am.
So instead of calling, can you email?
Sure. I will give you a date because I'm retiring the first May. If anybody here wants to send me an email between now and the 1st of May, do not hesitate to do so. My email address, I'll talk slow if you want to jot it down. S. Davidson, just like a motorcycle. And yes, I've had one, I'm going to get another one. At Pratt Library, that's all one word. Pratt, P-R-A-T-T, library.org. So the clock's ticking. If you want me to look into something, I enjoy these challenges. I mean, I'm thrilled. But if I don't find anything, I'll tell you that. Hopefully a suggestion of where you can find it if I can't help you. So flood my email box for the next 42 days of this county. Yes, ma'am.
Since you're, right?
I work at the Pratt Library System, yes.
So you must be familiar with
Actually, no, I am not a native Marylander.
as far as you.
We do have limited amount of Polish resources. It depends on the type of resource, the type of information you're looking, and the year of the event, if you have one. If you have something you're interested in, if you want to send me an email, send me what you have, what you're trying to find. And if I don't have anything to help you, I will offer other suggestions. The Baltimore County Genealogical Society is a good place to contact as well. Kind of run a tag team match. We may have something, they may have something we don't, vice versa. All we'd like to think is options to solve solutions.
How far, how difficult is it to, my father was born in Southern Italy, which is now Ukraine. So where would I live? Ukraine, over there?
Both. You're going to have to look at that probability.
And another question.
And real quick, because I've got other folks wanting to ask questions too.
I know that I've been in Germany,
Mhm.
and I information from Germany, I have very limited information. Germany really doesn't like to be questioned or asked anything about the
try some of the sites that are on Cindy's list. There may be some new fresh ones you may not have heard of or encountered, and I would give those a try. You may not find some reluctance or resistance, maybe a degree of cooperation or suggestion. If you find a site, the description that seems to match what you're doing, I mean, it doesn't cost anything to send an email and keep your fingers crossed you get a positive response. Yes, ma'am.
Ancestry has a DNA test. What do you feel about that? I mean, just give you some, you might be able to put up.
I
I mean, it's not going to tell you anything you don't already know, right?
Well, now, this is me personally speaking. This is not a Pratt librarian, okay? This is me personally speaking.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm a little reluctant initially to embrace it because I think at some point it could be a good tool to prove medically lineage. It's like with any new technique or gadget or device, I'm not comfortable with the full proveness of it yet. And I don't mean that as a criticism, and I don't mean that as being closed-minded. To me, it's relatively new. I'm just afraid that I don't have a comfort level with it at this point in time. And it may be something like, the thing I'm afraid of is maybe it's just some kind of a scam to get a couple $100 bucks. All I could suggest is with anything you're thinking about investing in or buying, do your diligent research. Buy a car, find out the rating. If you're thinking about sending in a DNA sample to a particular company, find out what ratings they have. People can hopefully, for the most part, be fairly honest, and hopefully it's not the employees panning up the results, so it'll be good. For what it's worth, next month, I believe, at the Pratt Library, we're going to have someone to talk about DNA. We have something at the library in our department called the Genealogy Circles. We try and have one guest speaker once a quarter, each probably on Saturdays from 10 to 11:30 to talk about some topic related to genealogy. And when you said that, it just reminded me. But it's at the website as far as the date, their time, and location, and a description of the speaker and what his expertise is. That would, if your schedule permits it to come up to see us, that might maybe answer some questions and maybe create a few more. You never know. Yes, sir. Now you talk about that would probably, I would imagine there'd probably be some kind of reference to whatever jurisdiction, whatever court legal system existed at the time that it's done. Now the tricky part is if you are fortunate enough to find it out, are there privacy issues and laws relating to the releasability of it? That's one of the big issues now with Bible records, birth, death, marriage records. People are concerned about identity theft. And every state, every jurisdiction has their own limits and criteria. Whether someone can or cannot get a marriage record from 40 years ago, it may have to be blood relatives, and you have to prove it. Well, the thing is, if your marriage record is approved, how are you going to prove who you are to be able to get the proof to prove who you are? In some states, that is a requirement. And some, if you submit some proof, they may also send you what's called a genealogical information uncertified copy of the document. Every state is different. Every jurisdiction is different. Some are extremely restrictive. Some are a little bit more relaxed. It depends on the document. It depends on the year frame when the event occurred. The older the document is, the older the event, the higher the probability you may be able to get a copy if it still exists and hasn't been destroyed or thrown away or whatever. It just depends on the jurisdiction. then again, even if you find it, would you be entitled legally or otherwise to be able to get a copy of it? Tricky one.
How do you go on a family tree?
Well, I guess if it were me doing that, I would probably have to get rather creative with an entry with a few disclaimers. If there's more than one name a person could have gone by or goes by. Of course, it brings up the question I raised there earlier is what source, what proof, what citation do you have? But then again, if you don't, maybe somebody has found what you're looking for, maybe you fill in the gaps. A little bit of luck involved. Now,
To follow up what she was talking about, the DNA swab, a colleague of mine at work, he's a Mormon, and he is all into the ancestry, and he just did the DNA swab, and he was fascinated by it because it popped up and he had like 20 more cousins that he didn't know about just from the DNA swab that they would be able to alert it. That he then had his wife do the swab as well as the in-law, the parents growing up that were still alive. And he found it fascinating because he said that, you know, when you have children, you think that they're getting so much percentage from each parent. And he said he has 6 kids. So he was saying that you could see the different amount of each ancestor he had in his body from the DNA swab. So he was all about it.
Yeah.
So, but I understand exactly where you're coming from.
yeah, that's something again, as I said earlier, I would have to really do a lot of thorough researching to see if there's pros and cons, what each side's statements, arguments, or support of it is or isn't. I know and again, it's just like technology, the internet, everything else. It's, I hope people don't get caught up in things like, TV show CSI, where they do all the investigation, but it's the same principle. It's a totally different area of expertise. You're talking about criminal investigation versus proving your family heritage. I'm not going to totally rule it out. I'm sitting on the sideline watching and analyzing what is popularized and publicized and what's out there. And I may just take a plunge too, but that's just me personally. Okay. Yes, sir.
Outside of all 3 military records, you said that this is the National Archive you can access military records, or do you have to go directly to St. Louis for military records?
For modern day military, United States military records. Okay. The National Archives has an office in St. Louis. It's, gosh, I'm embarrassed to say. Military Personnel Records Center. They've got nearly all the records going back to just prior, I think, to World War I. They've got a great website. It's very informative. It's fairly intuitive to use. So you can see and learn what you can ask for, what you can order. And there's forms online that you can fill out. If you're a relative of a veteran, you're going to need to prove that somehow. Obituary, birth certificate, if you have that. Because depending upon your relationship or lack of relationship to a veteran, it limits how much or how little you're going to get from that veteran's personnel file. Now, I will tell you this, there was a huge fire in the early 70s, and it destroyed millions of records. So there is a possibility, if you decide to send in a request, and it doesn't cost anything, it's all free, you may get a response if there are no records available. I would generally think, unfortunately, those records were destroyed in the fire. Okay. But it's the Military Personnel Records Center in St. Louis. Do a Google search, takes you right to it, and again, it's a very easy site to use. Turnaround time is generally at 4 to 5 weeks. You can't do research there. You could go to the archive down in DC.
Is the archives place in California?
That's an annex. That's an annex.
That's not an actual place to do research.
I don't know if you can or not. Not specifically the animals. It would hurt to maybe do research on them, see if they allow research to be done by the general public, and if so, there's hours and restrictions of what they can and can't do, when you can and cannot go. No, I forgot to tell you about one. You never know if we're gonna be doing that. Any other questions? Something I didn't cover, you expected me to, and I didn't. Don't be shy, tell me, I didn't know this. Yes, sir.
Resources, local, city, and county, history, historical, and genealogical sites.
I'm sorry.
Another source is local, county, city, historical sites. So,
Never heard of that before.
okay, I'll give you an example. There's a website that's called Historic Pittsburgh, and it will take you to a lot of different links in Pittsburgh.
Okay, yeah.
I found the same that, I think DC Historical Society, they keep a lot of, I've all through the Southwest, and Gulf Southwest, and found things on that, photographs and things like that, that were taken, and they, digitized them.
There's a lot out there, it's just a matter of where is it, and does it still exist? Real quick case in point, the county in South Carolina about 3 or 4 years ago, a new employee of the city government found about 10 or 12 boxes in the basement that had marriage records from the 1850s to the 1880s, I think it was, just sitting there collecting dust. And some of the political movers and shakers in that particular county decided to destroy them because they were afraid of identity theft. 2 o'clock in the morning, they were caught taking the boxes out of the basement and putting them into the dumpster. So they caused a big stink. The point I made was saying that is you may only find something at the local level. You may never find it. A lot of war records were destroyed during the Civil War, natural disasters, and then when you're talking about research in Europe, the wars there, records gone, lost forever. It's a shame, but that's the cold reality of a small part of this research. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Did you know anything about if someone was adopted, how it would, my grandfather was adopted, and you know at a certain point in time, they open up those files because such a long time period has gone by.
Question was about adoption records if they're ever unsealed. Again, I go back to what I said earlier. It depends on what the local jurisdiction statutes are. Some, I think, are never open, period. Some, you may need to get permission of the biological parent or parents involved with one of the child for adoption. That's opened up a huge emotional box that's really, I want to say scary, but it's scary. Contact, I from Maryland, I believe I think it's the Department of Human Resources, I think, would be one place to at least start finding out the generalities of adoption records. Again, it's such a sensitive, emotional issue, but there's a lot of restrictions, and what may be very strict in one state may not be quite as strict in another, and it may be twice as strict in a totally different state. Depending on what you're trying to find, if it's just genealogical information, there might be other sources, maybe an obituary might possibly have something. Social Security application. You're looking for someone who died, you're not sure what the mother's maiden name was. You can apply for a copy of the original Social Security application, and have the parent's name, father's name, and mother's name, to include maiden name. It's pricey, it's $27 if you have a social security number, I think it's 29 if you don't. And there's no guarantee, but it's an option. Yes, ma'am.
Come back to the DAR. I have a great aunt who I came back with family for 80 for research with the DAR. And I think she did everything. So what you're saying is I should go to the DAR and put her name in, I think that everything she submitted.
Only if she was approved for membership. Okay. A lot of people have applied for membership and were not accepted. And the reason was there's something they lacked for approved linking one generation to the next. We've got, I think it's a year and a half to find that little small piece of the puzzle that's missing.
But they would tell me that she was approved.
Yes.
Okay.
If you went to the library, you can do a search for a member by name or by what's called a national number. Every member gets her own unique national number. It's like a social security number. If you search someone by name, you have to know what her maiden name was if she was married. But if she applied and she was a member, she may apply when she was single. And that's what her maiden name is going to be on the application. Was she married? Was she married more than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times? I've seen that a couple of times too. So you may have to put more than one name in. And ultimately, if you don't find anything, no matter how many names you put in, either she used a name you're just not aware of, or she applied, was not approved, and never followed up with it. We got that all the time. People come in, my cousin, my aunt, my great-grandmother was a member, and I searched everywhere, even if she went by a nickname. I found one person who took me 45 minutes. It's Tiffany. Did she have a nickname? And that's what she put for her first name. So a lot of people come in and get stories, family lore, in the past 2 or 3, 4 generations. So-and-so was a member, and we searched every name combination, and either we got the name wrong, or she planned to join for some reason, never followed through with it. But if she joined, she'll be in there. It's just a matter of finding that right name combination. Yes, ma'am.
What's the process nowadays for
What kind of information? Anything specific or just general? When they came here, citizenship, naturalization, what? Ancestry, you got some good information. You,
That doesn't, I know INS from Washington. You were able to contact them directly. As long as the relative was dead, you could get information. I don't know what the current regulations are.
well, I don't know what the current regulations are either. I'm unfortunately only somewhat versed on how to find information for decades and generations ago. And if someone has immigrated here within the past 10, 15, 30 years, that might be private information. You may not be able to get it due to privacy issues.
Well, before we thank Steve properly, I believe that he has given everybody a survey. And while you fill out your survey, or if you need a pen or pencil, there's some on the table up here. I wanted to tell you about a few library events and services. Most importantly, I want to tell you that the library is going to begin auto-renewing items that qualify on April 1st. So I really truly hope that you're checking materials out from the library. I have a few items from our local Maryland collection, which pales in comparison to what Pratt offers. We have a row of books. They have an actual library of materials. But when you're checking those materials out, if you haven't heard about auto renewal already, ask a librarian. It will only affect items that qualify, but we're hoping it will reduce your charges and also free up some of our staff time. Definitely look for more information about that. It begins April 1st. I also want to tell you about a few upcoming events. Next Monday night, we're doing a fundraiser for the Friends of Calvert Library. It's a paint night. It's going to be held at the Brick Oven Pizza. That's not the right name of it. Brick Wood Fire Bistro here in Prince Frederick. There is also the rescheduled last concert in the Armed Forces Band Series. That's going to be April 6th. That'll be here. And there is a Library Foundation fundraiser. It's the art auction. If you've been before, it's a fantastic event with the tickets are $20, but the food is excellent. There's a cash bar. It's a fun evening with live music and also selected art that's up for auction. So that's a lot of fun. If you are planning on contacting Steve, make sure that you do that before he retires. And please thank him so much for coming out tonight and wish him luck in retirement.
Second retirement, I retired from the Air Force.
You can drop them off on the table. There's one in the back and one in the front. I hope I see an increased usage of 2 a.m. Heritage Quest database searches.